If you've ever found yourself stuck, starting projects with enthusiasm only to leave them incomplete, chasing quick hits of distraction over meaningful progress, you're not alone. You're trapped not because you're lazy, but because modern life has rewired your brain to seek novelty over achievement. Yet the good news is, just as easily as your brain became conditioned to distraction, it can be rewired for unstoppable discipline. Become addicted. 2 hours to Unshakable Discipline is your blueprint to breaking the cycle of distraction and reclaiming your ability to focus deeply and consistently. Drawing on cutting-edge neuroscience and proven productivity frameworks, this book teaches you how to harness your brain's neuroplasticity, your innate capacity to change, to effortlessly embed disciplined habits into your daily life. By dedicating just 2 hours a day, you'll discover how to reset your dopamine baseline, making meaningful work feel naturally rewarding again. You'll learn to create a daily power window of focused, deep work that multiplies your productivity by 2 to 4 times, without the exhaustion of burnout. Through strategic neuro hacks, you'll turn procrastination from a constant battle into powerful forward momentum. Ultimately, you'll find yourself embracing a new identity, someone who consistently finishes what they start, building lasting advantages that enrich every aspect of your life. This is more than a productivity guide. It's a systematic approach that transforms discipline from an exhausting act of willpower into an automatic, effortless habit. The result? You'll stop chasing shallow dopamine hits and start craving the powerful rewards of disciplined action. Welcome to your new addiction, the life-changing power of real, sustainable discipline. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Break the loop. Your phone buzzes. You glance. 3 minutes later, you're watching a video about a cat that learned to skateboard. Meanwhile, the proposal that could change your career sits untouched, mocking you from your desktop. Sound familiar? You're not broken. You're not lazy. Your brain is doing exactly what it was trained to do, chase the next hit of novelty like a lab rat pressing a lever for cocaine. The problem isn't your character, it's your wiring. This chapter will show you how to flip that wiring so your brain craves deep work instead of shallow distractions. In 2 hours a day, you can rewire your dopamine system to want the hard stuff. No willpower required, just smart design. The hijacked reward system. Here's what's really happening inside your skull. Every ping, notification, and quick check is training your brain to expect rewards without effort. Your dopamine receptors are getting hit with microdoses of pleasure all day long, raising your baseline so high that meaningful work feels like pushing a boulder uphill. Think of dopamine as your brain's currency. When you constantly spend it on cheap thrills, scrolling, checking, switching, you're broke when it's time to pay for the hard work that actually matters. Your reward system learns to crave the easy hit over the earned win. Each task switch fractures your attention. Research shows it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus after an interruption. But most knowledge workers check email every 6 minutes. Do the math. You're never actually focused. You're living in a permanent state of attention residue where part of your brain is always somewhere else. This isn't a character flaw. It's conditioning, and conditioning can be reversed. The willpower trap. Most people attack this problem with brute force. They try to be more disciplined or just focus harder. This is like trying to stop a river with your bare hands. Willpower is a finite resource that depletes throughout the day. By 3 p.m., you're running on fumes, and the phone starts looking irresistible again. When willpower fails, and it always does, shame kicks in. You tell yourself you're weak, undisciplined, not cut out for serious work. This shame creates a vicious cycle. You feel bad about your lack of focus, so you seek comfort in more distractions, which makes you feel worse, which drives more distraction seeking. Meanwhile, your identity slowly shifts. Instead of, I'm someone who finishes important work, you become, I'm someone who starts things but never follows through. This identity erosion is the real killer. Once you see yourself as undisciplined, you act undisciplined. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The solution isn't more willpower, it's better design. The missing system. Winners don't rely on motivation. They build systems that make the right choice automatic. But most people have no system for craving hard work. Their rewards are random. Sometimes they feel good after finishing something, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they celebrate progress, sometimes they immediately move to the next task without acknowledgement. Without a clear reward structure tied to meaningful work, your brain defaults to seeking rewards elsewhere. It finds them in notifications, social media, and the endless stream of digital candy designed to hijack your attention. Your time becomes clay in other people's hands. Meetings expand to fill available space. Urgent requests multiply. Your calendar looks like a game of Tetris played by someone who hates you. The 2-hour block that could change everything gets chopped into 15-minute fragments that change nothing. What victory looks like. Imagine your brain actually wanting to do deep work. Picture sitting down to write that proposal and feeling a pull toward the task instead of resistance. Envision starting your most important project and losing track of time because you're genuinely engaged, not forcing yourself through it. This isn't fantasy. It's neuroscience applied correctly. When you wire your dopamine system properly, you create automatic momentum. Your brain begins to anticipate the satisfaction that follows meaningful work. Starting becomes easier because your receptors remember the payoff. The 2-hour block transforms from a daily battle into a daily highlight. Your output multiplies, not because you're working more hours, but because you're working the right hours with full attention. 2 focused hours outperform 8 scattered ones every time. Projects that used to take weeks get finished in days. Your reputation shifts from promising but inconsistent to delivers without fail. Calm urgency replaces frantic energy. You know exactly what needs to happen and when. Decision fatigue drops because your priorities are crystal clear. Stress decreases because you're making real progress on things that matter instead of spinning your wheels on busy work. The cost of inaction. If you don't fix this, the pattern hardens into permanent identity. You become the person who has great ideas but never ships them. The one who starts strong but fades in the middle. The almost achiever who's always one distraction away from breakthrough. Performance plateaus despite increased effort. You work longer hours but produce the same results. Mood swings become your norm. Guilt when you're distracted, brief euphoria when you make progress, then back to guilt when the next shiny object pulls you away. Your relationships suffer. You're physically present but mentally elsewhere, always half listening because part of your brain is thinking about the work you should be doing. Trust erodes as deadlines slip and promises go unkept. Self-respect takes the biggest hit of all. Meanwhile, more disciplined operators pass you by. They're not smarter or more talented, they just have better systems. They ship while you plan, they finish while you start, they build while you research. Your first victory. By the time you finish this book, you'll complete one full 120-minute deep work block with 0 task switches. You'll ship 2 concrete deliverables, maybe a draft and an analysis, or a strategy document and an implementation plan. You'll notice fewer urges to check your devices because your brain will be getting its dopamine from progress instead of pings. You'll have a repeatable start ritual that takes 15 to 20 minutes and reliably gets you into flow state. One cue will trigger work mode automatically. Your 3-item task menu will be written the night before, eliminating decision fatigue at the starting line. Most importantly, you'll taste what it feels like when your brain wants to do the work. That 60-second celebration after each micro-finish will start rewiring your reward system. The weekly surprise will accelerate the learning. Your basic streak tracker will begin anchoring a new identity, someone who finishes. The 7-step system. The method has 7 components, each building on the last. Baseline reset lowers background stimulation so real work feels rewarding by contrast. Power window creates one protected 120-minute block that becomes your daily engine. Phasic Control reserves your best dopamine hits for meaningful progress. Reward link welds satisfaction to effort through micro finishes and strategic surprises. Habit Rebind flips your cue routine reward loops so the same triggers that used to lead to distraction now lead to deep work. Identity Lock makes consistency part of who you are through visible streaks and small public commitments. Recovery Days preserve receptor sensitivity so motivation stays fresh week after week. This sequence matters. You can't amplify signal until you lower noise. You can't control spikes until you have a container for them. You can't automate habits until you've proven the routine works. Each step enables the next. Winners versus losers. Winners design their dopamine, losers chase it wherever it leads. Winners defend their 2 hours like a meeting with their future self. Losers negotiate with every interruption. Winners ship finished work. Losers collect research and call it progress. Winners track streaks of completed blocks. Losers track good intentions that never materialize. Winners plan friction to make distractions harder and deep work easier. Losers rely on mood and wonder why consistency feels impossible. The difference isn't talent or willpower, it's system design. Proof from the pros. Kobe Bryant built his legendary work ethic through protected training blocks that became automatic over time. No novelty during core work, just repetition that welded identity to effort. He became addicted to the grind because the grind consistently paid off in measurable improvement. Bill Gates used Think Week retreats to strip away all novelty and chase pure depth. Baseline reset through isolation, power windows for reading and thinking. The insights from those focus sessions compounded into the strategic decisions that built Microsoft. Jerry Seinfeld's daily chain method made micro-finishes immediately rewarding. The visible streak created loss aversion. Breaking the chain felt worse than writing felt good. His reward was tied to the act of writing, not the outcome. His identity became a person who writes today. J.K. Rowling protected her writing sprints with fixed locations and rituals. Her environment enforced deep work automatically. Finish lines were everywhere. Pages, chapters, scenes. The system ran itself while she focused on the craft. The neuroscience made simple. Your brain has 2 dopamine systems, tonic, background level, and phasic, moment-to-moment spikes. When tonic is high from constant stimulation, phasic spikes from real achievement feel weak. When tonic is low, those same spikes feel powerful and memorable. The method works by lowering tonic dopamine through controlled input, then creating strong phasic spikes tied to meaningful work. Your brain learns to predict and crave the state that follows effort. Repetition strengthens this association until starting feels automatic. Identity markers, streaks, public commitments, simple self-definitions add intrinsic rewards that don't depend on external outcomes. Pride becomes the most reliable payoff. Recovery days prevent desensitization, so the system stays fresh. What happens next? The next chapter reveals the baseline reset, how to quiet the noise so your signal can shine. You'll learn the exact 15 to 20-minute ritual that makes the first 10 minutes of work feel effortless instead of impossible. But first, understand this. You're not fixing a character flaw. You're debugging a system. The hardware is fine. The software just needs better programming. 2 hours, 1 decision. The loop breaks today. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2, Baseline Reset. It's 9 a.m. You sit down to tackle your most important project. Your brain feels like a radio stuck between stations, picking up fragments of yesterday's meeting, tomorrow's deadline, and the notification that just buzzed your phone. You stare at the blank document for 10 minutes, type a sentence, delete it, then somehow find yourself reading about penguins in Antarctica. What just happened? Your baseline is too high. Think of your brain as a nightclub where the music is already cranked to 11. When the headliner takes the stage, your important work, nobody can hear the difference. The crowd keeps chatting, distracted by the noise that's been pounding all day. But what if you could turn down the background music first? The hidden saboteur. Most people think focus is about pushing harder. They try to force concentration through sheer will, like screaming over the noise instead of lowering the volume. This is why the first 10 minutes of deep work feel like lifting a car with your bare hands. Your dopamine system has been getting micro hits all morning. Email checks, news glances, social media scrolls, each one raises your neurochemical baseline a little higher. By the time you sit down to work, your brain needs a massive stimulus to feel engaged. A simple document doesn't stand a chance against a system that's been trained to expect constant novelty. This isn't about willpower, it's about contrast. When your baseline is low, moderate stimulation feels rewarding. When your baseline is high, even intense stimulation feels dull. It's the difference between enjoying a candle in a dark room versus trying to notice it in broad daylight. The solution isn't to make your work more exciting, it's to make everything else quieter. The Gates Method. In the 1980s and 1990s, Bill Gates would disappear twice a year for what he called think weeks. He'd retreat to a remote cabin with nothing but books, papers, and his thoughts. No phone calls, no meetings, no interruptions, just deliberate isolation and deep analysis. These weren't vacations, they were strategic resets. Gates would arrive with his mind cluttered by the daily chaos of running Microsoft. But after a few days of minimal input, something shifted. His brain began craving the very thing it had been avoiding: sustained, difficult thinking. The breakthrough insights that shaped Microsoft's future didn't come from brainstorming sessions or strategy meetings. They emerged from the quiet. When Gates lowered his baseline through isolation, deep analysis became the most rewarding activity available. His brain stopped fighting the work and started seeking it. You don't need a cabin in the woods. You just need to understand the principle. Reduce noise so signals stand out. The mood myth. I'll start when I feel motivated. This is the battle cry of the perpetually stuck. They're waiting for the perfect internal state, energized but calm, focused but creative, driven but relaxed. It never comes because they're trying to manufacture motivation in a high-stimulation environment. Motivation isn't a feeling you wait for. It's a state you create through environmental design. When your baseline is properly reset, work doesn't require motivation. It requires less energy than distraction. Some people think more productivity tools will solve this. They download apps, buy gadgets, and optimize their systems while their phone buzzes every 30 seconds. It's like trying to hear a whisper at a rock concert by cupping your ear. The problem isn't your hearing, it's the noise. Others believe longer warm-ups are better. They spend an hour getting ready to work, organizing their desk, reviewing their goals, planning their approach. This is procrastination theater. The longer you delay starting, the more opportunities your brain has to find something more immediately rewarding. The reset should be brief, consistent, and focused on one goal: lowering the noise floor so your signal can shine. The 3-move reset. The baseline reset has 3 components, each designed to quiet a different type of noise. Think of it as tuning an instrument before a performance. You're not changing the music, you're making sure it sounds clear when you play it. The first move targets attention residue. Your brain is like a browser with 47 tabs open. Each unfinished thought, incomplete task, and open loop consumes mental bandwidth. You need to close those tabs before opening your work file. Take 3 minutes to dump everything swirling in your head onto a single sheet of paper. Don't organize it. Don't prioritize it. Just get it out. Your brain will stop trying to remember these things once it knows they're captured somewhere safe. Circle only one item that absolutely must be addressed after your work block. Everything else can wait. This isn't about solving problems. It's about parking them so they stop honking in your mental parking lot. Close all browser tabs and start from a clean desktop. Visual clutter creates cognitive load. Every icon, notification badge, and open window is a tiny distraction competing for attention. A clean workspace is a quiet workspace. The second move eliminates external interruptions. Enable website and app blocks for 150 minutes, 20 minutes longer than your work block, to account for the reset and a brief cooldown. Your future self will thank your present self for removing the option to just check quickly. Set your phone to Do Not Disturb with an auto reply. Heads down for 2 hours. Will respond after 11 a.m. This isn't rude, it's professional. You're protecting the time that creates your most valuable output. Keep only the tools you need for your specific task accessible. If you're writing, close your email client. If you're analyzing data, close your messaging apps. Every unnecessary program is a potential escape route your brain will find when the work gets challenging. The third move creates consistent sensory cues. Your brain learns through association. When the same sounds, scents, and visual setup precede focused work, they begin to trigger the focus state automatically. Choose one subtle background sound, white noise, instrumental music, or even silence, and use it only during work blocks. Pick a light scent if it helps, peppermint, eucalyptus, or whatever you find calming but not distracting. Keep your lighting consistent and your posture the same. Set up your workspace identically each day. Same chair height, same screen angle, same file open to the exact page where you'll begin. This isn't obsessive, it's strategic. Consistency eliminates micro-decisions and creates a Pavlovian trigger for focus. Make your timer visible and start it as the final step of your reset. The ticking clock becomes a gentle accountability partner, reminding you that this time is protected and precious. The grayscale secret. Here's a trick most productivity experts miss. Switch your screen to grayscale during the reset and keep it that way during your work block. Color is designed to grab attention. App icons, website graphics, and interface elements use bright colors specifically to trigger dopamine responses. Grayscale removes this visual stimulation without affecting functionality. Your brain gets fewer micro-hits from simply looking at your screen, making the work itself more rewarding by comparison. It's a small change with a surprisingly large impact. The reset should take 15 to 20 minutes maximum. Any longer, and you're procrastinating. Any shorter, and you're not giving your brain enough time to downshift from high stimulation mode to focus mode. Name your reset ritual something memorable: quiet start, deep dive prep, or focus protocol. This creates identity linkage. You're not just organizing your workspace, you're becoming the type of person who prepares properly for important work. What success looks like. In the beginning, success means getting through the first 30 minutes with one or fewer urges to check something unrelated to your task. No task switching, no quick peeks at email, no sudden urges to research something tangentially related to your project. As the reset becomes routine, you'll notice the full 120-minute block feels different. The subjective intensity of distraction urges drops by roughly half. Your brain stops fighting the work and starts flowing with it. The reset creates a neurochemical environment where focus feels natural instead of forced. The ultimate goal is Pavlovian anticipation. After weeks of consistent resets, the ritual itself begins to trigger excitement for the work ahead. Your brain learns to associate the cues with the satisfaction that follows meaningful progress. The reset stops being something you have to do and becomes something you want to do. When things go wrong. The most common failure is ritual creep. What starts as a 15-minute reset gradually expands to 30, then 45 minutes as you add helpful steps. Use a checklist with timestamps to keep yourself honest. If a step consistently takes longer than planned, either streamline it or eliminate it. Hidden cues sabotage many resets. You close your browser tabs but leave your email client open. You silence notifications but keep your phone face up on your desk. You think you've eliminated distractions, but your brain knows they're still accessible. Start from a completely blank workspace template and be ruthless about removing options. Urgent messages are the reset killer. Someone always needs something right now. Your auto-reply handles most of this, but some people will find ways around it. Schedule 2 specific times each day for responding to messages, before your work block and after. Protect the reset like you'd protect a surgery. the world can wait 2 hours. The compound effect. Each successful reset makes the next one easier. Your brain begins to anticipate the calm that follows the ritual. The cues start triggering focus automatically. What felt forced in week 1 feels natural by week 3. The reset isn't just about today's work session. It's training your brain to crave depth over distraction. Every time you choose signal over noise, you strengthen the neural pathways that make focus feel rewarding. Every time you honor the ritual, you reinforce the identity of someone who does important work. The baseline reset is the foundation everything else builds on. Skip it, and every other technique fights an uphill battle. Master it, and you'll wonder how you ever worked any other way. But lowering the noise is only half the equation. Once your baseline is reset, you need a container strong enough to hold your focus for 2 full hours. That container has a name, and it's more powerful than any motivation hack you've ever tried. Chapter 3, Power Window. You've reset your baseline, the noise is down, the signal is clear. But now what? You sit in the quiet, staring at your screen, and realize something unsettling. You have no idea what to do with all this focus. This is the moment most people fail. They've created the perfect conditions for deep work, then waste them deciding what to work on. They spend 20 minutes choosing between projects, another 10 organizing their approach, and by the time they start working, their energy peak has passed. The solution isn't better decision-making, it's eliminating decisions altogether. Welcome to the Power Window, 120 minutes that will transform how you think about time, productivity, and what's possible when you stop negotiating with yourself. The container principle. Think about water. Pour it on the ground and it spreads everywhere, accomplishing nothing. Pour it into a channel and it becomes a river, carving canyons and moving mountains. The same water, but the container changes everything. Your attention is like that water. Without a container, it spreads across every available task, email, and random thought. With the right container, it becomes a force that shapes your career, your business, your life. Most people think containers limit creativity. They're wrong. Constraints create creativity. When you have infinite options, you choose none. When you have clear boundaries, you push against them and discover what you're truly capable of. The power window is your container. Not just any container, a precisely designed, strategically placed, ruthlessly defended 120-minute block that becomes the engine of everything you build. Why 2 hours changes everything? There's something magical about the 2-hour mark. It's long enough to get past the initial resistance, settle into flow, and produce something meaningful. It's short enough to defend against the chaos of modern work life. It's the sweet spot where deep work becomes possible without becoming overwhelming. 90 minutes isn't enough. You spend the first 30 minutes getting into the zone, the middle 30 doing good work, and the final 30 watching the clock. 2 hours gives you that crucial extra 30 minutes where the real breakthroughs happen, when you're fully immersed and your brain stops fighting the work. 3 hours is too long for most people to defend consistently. Life will find a way to interrupt. Meetings will creep in. Urgent requests will multiply. The longer the block, the more opportunities for it to get chopped up. But 120 minutes? That's defendable. That's sustainable. That's the difference between having a good idea and shipping something that matters. The Buffett Blueprint. Warren Buffett's calendar looks nothing like a typical CEO's. While other executives pack their days with back-to-back meetings, Buffett protects massive blocks of time for reading and thinking. His assistant has standing instructions: no meetings during his analysis hours. This isn't laziness, it's strategic brilliance. Buffett understands that his highest value activity, making investment decisions that move billions of dollars, requires sustained, uninterrupted thought. He can't evaluate a company's prospects in 15-minute fragments between phone calls. The results speak for themselves. While other investors chase the latest trends and react to market noise, Buffett's deep analysis compounds into superior long-term returns. His calendar reflects his priorities, not other people's urgencies. The power window operates on the same principle. You're not just protecting time, you're protecting the type of thinking that creates exponential results. The kind of thinking that's impossible when your attention is scattered across a dozen competing priorities. The flexibility trap. But I need flexibility to be creative. This is the rallying cry of the chronically unproductive. They confuse structure with rigidity, constraints with limitations. They think creativity requires chaos when it actually requires clarity. Real creativity emerges from deep engagement with a specific problem over sustained time. You can't have breakthrough insights while juggling 3 projects and checking email every 10 minutes. Creativity needs space to breathe, time to develop, and freedom from the constant pressure to switch contexts. The most creative people in history were obsessively structured about their work. Maya Angelou rented a hotel room with nothing but a Bible, a thesaurus, and a bottle of sherry, and wrote from 6:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day. Toni Morrison wrote before dawn, in the quiet hours before the world woke up. Stephen King writes 2,000 words every single day, including Christmas and his birthday. Structure doesn't kill creativity. It protects it from the 1,000 small interruptions that do. The scattered work illusion. Some people think they can achieve the same results with scattered bursts of focus throughout the day. 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, an hour if they're lucky. They add up the time and convince themselves it equals deep work. It doesn't. Task switching creates cognitive residue. Part of your brain stays stuck on the previous task while you're trying to focus on the current one. It takes an average of 23 minutes to fully transition between complex tasks. If you're switching every 30 minutes, you're never fully present for any task. Deep work isn't just about time, it's about sustained attention. It's the difference between lifting weights for 2 hours straight versus doing 10 sets with 20-minute breaks between each one. The total time might be the same, but the training effect is completely different. The power window creates genuine deep work because it eliminates transitions. You go deep once and stay there. Your brain doesn't have to keep switching gears. It can settle into the work and discover what's possible when attention becomes a laser instead of a flashlight. Finding your peak. Not all hours are created equal. Your brain has natural rhythms, times when attention is sharp and times when it's scattered. The power window works best when it aligns with your natural energy peak. For most people, this peak occurs in the morning, typically between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. Your cortisol is naturally elevated, your willpower reserves are full, and your brain hasn't been depleted by a day of decisions and distractions. But some people are natural night owls whose peak comes later. Track your energy for 3 days. Note when you feel most alert, when complex thinking feels effortless, when you naturally want to tackle challenging work. This is your peak. This is where the power window belongs. Once you identify your peak, lock the block there Monday through Friday. Same time, same place, same ritual. Consistency is crucial because your brain learns through repetition. When the same time slot consistently produces focused work, your brain begins to anticipate and crave that state. Treat this block like a meeting with your future self, because that's exactly what it is. The person you become depends on how you use these 120 minutes. Miss the meeting, and you're not just losing time. You're losing momentum, identity, and the compound effect of consistent progress. The night before protocol. The biggest mistake people make is deciding what to work on during the power window. Decision fatigue is real, and it's strongest when you're trying to focus. Every minute spent choosing between tasks is a minute stolen from actually doing them. The solution is the night before protocol. Before you close your laptop each evening, write a 3-item task menu for tomorrow's power window. Structure it as must, should, could. The must item is non-negotiable, the one thing that absolutely has to move forward. The should item is important but not urgent. The could item is a backup in case you finish early. This isn't about creating pressure, it's about eliminating friction. When you sit down to work, there's no decision to make. You open the file, start the timer, and begin. Your brain can focus on execution instead of evaluation. Open the exact files before the block starts. If you're writing, have the document open to the exact paragraph where you'll begin. If you're analyzing data, have the spreadsheet loaded with the right tab selected. Remove every possible decision point between sitting down and starting work. Defending the fortress. The power window only works if you defend it ruthlessly. This means saying no to meetings, calls, and quick questions during your protected time. It means training colleagues, clients, and even family members to respect these boundaries. Create a standing calendar event with automatic decline rules. When someone tries to schedule a meeting during your power window, they get a polite auto response suggesting alternative times. Most people will respect this if you're consistent about it. Use physical barriers when possible. A closed door, a do not disturb sign, or even noise-canceling headphones signal that you're unavailable. If you work in an open office, find a conference room, a quiet corner, or even your car. The location matters less than the protection. Build in 2 fallback slots per week for when life inevitably interferes. A client emergency, a family obligation, or a genuine crisis will occasionally disrupt your power window. Having backup slots prevents one missed session from derailing your entire week. The identity shift. Name your power window something meaningful. Build mode, deep dive, creation time, whatever resonates with you. This isn't just semantics, it's identity formation. You're not just blocking time on your calendar, you're becoming the type of person who protects their most important work. Use the same opening ritual every time. The same first keystroke, the same opening line, the same way of positioning your hands on the keyboard. These small consistencies create pattern recognition in your brain. The ritual becomes a trigger that automatically shifts you into focus mode. Track completed power windows with a simple paper tally near your desk. Each mark represents a victory, not just over distraction, but over the part of yourself that wants to take the easy path. The visual reminder builds momentum and creates accountability. The compound effect. 3 consecutive completed power windows prove the concept works. You'll notice the difference in your output, your mood, and your confidence. 10 consecutive windows, and you'll ship 2 major deliverables that have been stuck in your pipeline for months. 21 to 30 consecutive windows, and something remarkable happens. Other people start planning around your power window. They stop trying to schedule meetings during your protected time. They begin to see you as someone who gets important things done. You feel a genuine pull to start when the time arrives. This isn't just about productivity, it's about identity transformation. You're becoming someone who honors commitments to yourself, someone who protects what matters, someone who ships instead of just starting. When the system breaks, double booking will happen. Someone will schedule a critical meeting during your power window, or you'll accidentally accept a calendar invite without checking the time. Set up auto-decline rules and stick to them. Move the meeting, not the window. Interruptions are inevitable, especially in the beginning. People will test your boundaries. They'll claim their request is urgent, important, or just takes a minute. Have a standard response ready. I'm in a focused work block until 11 a.m. Can we address this then? Most interruptions aren't as urgent as they seem. Task ambiguity kills momentum. If you sit down and don't know exactly what to do first, you'll waste precious minutes figuring it out. The night before protocol prevents this, but if you're stuck, start with a 2-minute first move. Opening a file, writing a single sentence, or reviewing your notes. Motion creates momentum. The ripple effect. The power window doesn't just change how you work. It changes how you think about time, priorities, and what's possible when you stop negotiating with yourself. It creates a daily proof point that you can do hard things consistently. This consistency ripples into other areas of your life. When you honor your commitment to focused work, you start honoring other commitments too. When you protect your most important time, you start protecting your most important relationships. When you ship meaningful work daily, you start seeing yourself as someone who finishes what they start. The power window becomes your daily victory. Not over other people, but over the part of yourself that wants to take shortcuts, check email, or work on easier tasks. Each completed session builds evidence that you're becoming the person you want to be. But creating the container is only the beginning. Once you have protected time, you need to ensure your brain actually wants to use it for deep work instead of finding clever ways to waste it. That's where the next piece of the puzzle becomes critical, and it's more counterintuitive than you might expect. Chapter 4, Phasic Control. You've built the perfect power window. Your baseline is reset, your time is protected, your environment is optimized. You sit down to work and nothing. The motivation that carried you through the setup evaporates the moment you need it most. Your brain feels flat, uninterested, like a phone with a dead battery. What's happening? You've been giving away your best neurochemical rewards to activities that don't deserve them. Every notification check, every social media scroll, every quick peek at the news has been training your brain to expect pleasure without effort. Now, when effort is required, your reward system has nothing left to give. This is the hidden saboteur that destroys even the most well-designed productivity systems. You can have perfect conditions and still fail if your dopamine is scattered across a dozen trivial activities instead of concentrated on the work that matters. The solution isn't to eliminate all pleasure. It's to become strategic about where you place your neurochemical bets. The dopamine budget crisis. Think of dopamine like money in your bank account. Every time you check your phone, scroll through feeds, or indulge in random novelty, you're making a small withdrawal. These microtransactions seem harmless individually, but they add up quickly. By the time you sit down for serious work, your account is overdrawn. Most people don't realize they're spending their dopamine budget unconsciously. They wake up and immediately check their phone, withdrawal number 1. They scan the news while their computer boots up, withdrawal number 2. They glance at social media just for a second, withdrawal number 3. Before they've even started working, they've blown through their neurochemical resources on activities that produce nothing of value. Your brain doesn't distinguish between earned and unearned rewards. A dopamine spike from completing a challenging task feels neurochemically similar to a spike from watching a funny video. But there's a crucial difference. One teaches your brain to crave effort, the other teaches it to avoid effort in favor of easier pleasures. When you scatter your dopamine across random activities, you're training your brain to want the wrong things. When you concentrate it on meaningful work, you're training your brain to crave the activities that actually move your life forward. The scarcity advantage. Here's what the productivity gurus won't tell you. Scarcity makes everything more rewarding. When dopamine hits are rare and earned, they feel more intense and memorable. When they're constant and free, they lose their power to motivate. This is why people who constantly seek stimulation often feel chronically understimulated. Their baseline is so high that normal activities feel boring. They need bigger and bigger hits to feel the same level of satisfaction. It's neurochemical inflation. You need more stimulus to buy the same amount of pleasure. The solution is controlled scarcity. By intentionally limiting your access to easy dopamine hits, you make the earned ones feel more rewarding. Your brain becomes more sensitive to the pleasure that follows genuine accomplishment. Work stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like the most rewarding activity available. This isn't about becoming a monk or eliminating all pleasure from your life. It's about becoming strategic. You're not giving up rewards. You're investing them where they'll generate the highest returns. The multitasking mirage. But I get more dopamine hits when I multitask, so I must be more productive. This is one of the most dangerous myths in modern productivity culture. People confuse neurochemical activity with progress, stimulation with accomplishment. Multitasking doesn't give you more rewards. It gives you more micro rewards that train your brain to crave distraction. Each task switch triggers a small dopamine release, but it's the neurochemical equivalent of junk food. It feels satisfying in the moment, but leaves you depleted and craving more. Real productivity comes from sustained attention on meaningful tasks. This requires fewer, larger dopamine releases tied to genuine progress. It's the difference between eating candy all day and having a satisfying meal. The candy gives you more frequent sugar hits, but the meal actually nourishes you. When you multitask, you're training your brain to expect constant stimulation. When you focus deeply, you're training it to find satisfaction in sustained effort. The neurochemical patterns you reinforce today determine what your brain will crave tomorrow. The celebration deficit. Most high achievers have a celebration problem. They finish one task and immediately move to the next without acknowledging what they've accomplished. They treat completion like a pit stop in a race, necessary but not worth savoring. This is neurochemically disastrous. Your brain learns through reinforcement. If finishing important work doesn't trigger a reward response, your brain won't prioritize that work in the future. You're essentially training yourself to find completion unrewarding. The solution is micro-celebrations, not elaborate parties or expensive treats, but brief, immediate acknowledgments of progress, a moment of satisfaction, a mental yes, a physical gesture of completion. These tiny rewards teach your brain that finishing feels good. The key is timing. The celebration must immediately follow the accomplishment. Delayed gratification is important for long-term goals, but immediate reinforcement is crucial for habit formation. Your brain needs to connect the effort with the reward in real time. The three-part system. Phasic Control operates through three interconnected mechanisms. First, you set a daily reward budget, a specific number of non-work dopamine hits you're allowed each day. This creates scarcity and makes each hit more valuable. Choose a number that feels slightly restrictive but not punitive. 3 to 5 novelty moments per day works for most people. Define exactly what counts: checking social media, reading news, watching videos, playing games. Everything else waits until after your power window. Track your budget with a simple tally system. Each time you indulge in a budgeted activity, mark it down. When you hit your limit, you're done for the day. This isn't about self-punishment. It's about conscious consumption. You're making deliberate choices about where to spend your neurochemical resources. Second, you schedule specific novelty windows. Instead of checking things randomly throughout the day, you designate 2 brief periods when you're allowed to indulge in stimulating but non-productive activities. This gives you something to look forward to while protecting your focus during work periods. Schedule these windows after your power window, not before. If you check social media at 10 a.m., you'll be thinking about it during your 11 a.m. work session. If you check it at 1 p.m., it becomes a reward for completing your morning's deep work. Keep the windows brief, 15 to 20 minutes maximum. Longer periods lead to dopamine saturation and make it harder to focus afterward. You want just enough stimulation to satisfy the craving without overwhelming your system. Third, you design earned spikes tied directly to work progress. These are tiny, immediate rewards that follow micro-accomplishments within your power window. Completing a section, solving a problem, or reaching a milestone triggers a brief celebration. The celebration should be proportional to the accomplishment. Finishing a paragraph might earn a 30-second stretch and a mental good job. Completing a major section might earn a 2-minute walk around the office. The reward doesn't need to be elaborate, it just needs to be immediate and tied to the effort. The weekly wild card. Here's where it gets interesting. Once per week, add a small, unexpected reward after your power window. This could be anything: a favorite coffee, a short walk in the sun, a call to a friend you haven't talked to in a while. The key is that it's unpredictable. This leverages what neuroscientists call reward prediction error. When something good happens that you weren't expecting, your brain pays extra attention. The unexpected reward strengthens the neural pathways associated with the behavior that preceded it. In this case, that behavior is sustained focus during your power window. The weekly surprise doesn't need to be expensive or time-consuming. It just needs to be genuinely unexpected and genuinely pleasant. Your brain will start to associate deep work with the possibility of pleasant surprises, making the work itself more appealing. Vary the surprise so your brain doesn't adapt to it. Predictable rewards lose their power over time. Unpredictable rewards maintain their ability to reinforce behavior indefinitely. The progress bar psychology. Visual progress indicators are dopamine delivery systems. When you see a bar filling up or a number increasing, your brain releases a small hit of satisfaction. This is why video games are so addictive. They provide constant visual feedback about progress. You can hack this system for productive purposes. Create a visible progress bar for your power window tasks. It could be as simple as a checklist with boxes to fill, or as sophisticated as a digital tracker that shows percentage completion. The key is making progress visible and immediate. Each small step forward should register visually. This provides micro rewards throughout your work session, not just at the end. Your brain starts to crave the visual feedback, which means it starts to crave the work that produces the feedback. Update your progress indicator only when you've genuinely moved forward. Don't cheat by marking things complete before they're actually done. Your brain is smart enough to know the difference between real progress and fake progress. Authentic accomplishment triggers authentic reward responses. The energy management factor. Not all dopamine is created equal. The quality of your reward response depends partly on your physical and mental state when you experience it. If you're tired, stressed, or depleted, even genuine accomplishments won't feel as rewarding as they should. This is why the timing of your power window matters so much. When you align deep work with your natural energy peak, accomplishments feel more satisfying. The same task that feels like drudgery at 3 p.m. can feel genuinely enjoyable at 9 a.m. Pay attention to your energy patterns throughout the day. Most people have a natural dip in the early afternoon, usually between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. This is not the time for your most important work. Save this period for routine tasks that don't require peak focus or creativity. If your energy crashes during your power window, don't push through with brute force. Take a 90-second reset. Stand up, take a few deep breaths, adjust your posture, then resume. This brief interruption can restore enough energy to finish strong. The saturation warning signs. Dopamine saturation is real and dangerous. When you've had too many rewards in too short a time, your brain becomes temporarily unresponsive to further stimulation. Everything feels flat and uninteresting. This is your neurochemical system telling you to slow down. The warning signs are subtle but recognizable. Tasks that usually feel engaging start feeling boring. Accomplishments that should feel satisfying feel empty. You find yourself seeking more and more stimulation to feel the same level of interest. When you notice these signs, it's time for a dopamine fast. Reduce all non-essential stimulation for 24 to 48 hours. No social media, no news, no entertainment media, no unnecessary shopping or browsing. Stick to essential activities and let your system reset. This isn't punishment, it's maintenance. Just like athletes need recovery days to prevent overtraining, your reward system needs recovery periods to prevent desensitization. A brief fast restores sensitivity and makes normal activities feel rewarding again. The compound effect. When you control your dopamine strategically, something remarkable happens. Work becomes the most rewarding activity in your day. Not because you've eliminated all other pleasures, but because you've made work the primary source of earned satisfaction. Your brain starts to anticipate the good feeling that follows deep work. The power window becomes something you look forward to instead of something you endure. Starting feels easier because your brain remembers the payoff. Finishing feels better because the reward is concentrated and earned. This creates a positive feedback loop. Better work leads to better rewards, which leads to stronger motivation, which leads to better work. The system becomes self-reinforcing. Discipline stops being something you force and becomes something you crave. The people around you will notice the change. You'll seem more focused, more productive, more satisfied with your work. They'll ask what you're doing differently. The answer is simple. You've learned to give your best neurochemical rewards to your best work. But controlling when you get dopamine is only half the equation. The other half is ensuring that the dopamine you do get is tied to the right activities in the right way. That's where the next piece of the puzzle becomes crucial, and it's more precise than most people realize. Chapter 5, Reward Link. You finish writing a crucial section of your proposal. It's good work, clear, compelling, exactly what your client needs. You save the file, close your laptop, and nothing. No sense of accomplishment, no satisfaction, just the immediate urge to check your phone or move on to the next task. Sound familiar? You've just experienced the most common productivity killer that nobody talks about, the broken reward link. Your brain is a learning machine, constantly updating its predictions about which activities lead to good feelings. When you finish important work and feel nothing, you're teaching your brain that effort doesn't pay off. When you check social media and get a little dopamine hit, you're teaching it that distraction does. Over time, this creates a devastating reversal. Your brain starts craving the activities that waste time and avoiding the activities that create value. The solution isn't to work harder. It's to rewire the connection between effort and reward so your brain wants to do the work that matters. The missing connection. Most people think motivation comes before action. They wait to feel inspired, energized, or excited about their work before they begin. But neuroscience reveals the opposite. Motivation follows reward, and reward follows action. The sequence is act, reward, crave, repeat. This is why traditional goal setting often fails. You set a big, inspiring target, write a book, launch a business, get promoted, then wonder why you can't sustain the effort required to achieve it. The problem isn't your goal, it's the gap between effort and reward. Big goals create big gaps. If your only reward comes when you finish the entire project, your brain has to wait weeks or months between positive reinforcement sessions. That's neurochemically unsustainable. Your brain needs frequent feedback to maintain motivation. Without it, even the most inspiring goals feel like punishment. The solution is to engineer micro-rewards throughout the process. Not fake rewards or participation trophies, but genuine moments of completion that trigger authentic satisfaction. You're not lowering your standards, you're creating a sustainable feedback loop that makes high standards achievable. The Seinfeld Secret. Jerry Seinfeld became one of the most successful comedians in history using a deceptively simple system. He bought a large wall calendar and a red marker. Every day he wrote jokes. He marked a big X on that date. His only goal was to not break the chain. This wasn't about writing good jokes or getting laughs or building a career. It was about making the act of writing immediately rewarding. The X was his reward. The chain was his motivation. The daily practice was his path to mastery. Notice what Seinfeld didn't do. He didn't wait until he had a perfect joke to celebrate. He didn't postpone satisfaction until he got a standing ovation. He didn't tie his daily reward to external outcomes he couldn't control. He rewarded the process, not the results. This created a powerful psychological shift. Instead of, "I need to become a great comedian," his identity became, "I am someone who writes jokes today." Instead of chasing future success, he found present satisfaction. Instead of depending on external validation, he created internal momentum. The chain method works because it makes finishing feel better than not starting. Each X represents a small victory, a kept promise, a step toward the person he wanted to become. The visual progress creates loss aversion. Breaking the chain feels worse than maintaining it. The daily reward makes the habit self-reinforcing. The big goal trap. I need a big, inspiring goal to stay motivated. This is one of the most dangerous myths in productivity culture. Big goals without micro-rewards create what psychologists call the arrival fallacy, the belief that you'll be happy when you reach some distant destination. The arrival fallacy is neurochemically disastrous. Your brain needs regular dopamine hits to maintain motivation. If your only reward comes at the end of a months-long project, your brain will find other sources of stimulation. It will seek immediate gratification elsewhere, making the long-term work feel increasingly difficult and unrewarding. Big goals also create what researchers call goal gradient effect. Motivation increases as you get closer to completion. This sounds positive, but it has a dark side. If your goal is too big, you spend most of your time in the low motivation zone, far from the finish line, where energy naturally increases. The solution isn't smaller goals, it's more finish lines. You keep the big, inspiring vision but create dozens of micro-completions along the way. Each small finish triggers a small reward, keeping motivation high throughout the journey instead of just at the end. The celebration resistance. Many high achievers resist celebrating small wins. They think it's soft, self-indulgent, or a waste of time. They believe that real professionals just do the work without needing constant validation. This is neurochemically naive. Celebration isn't about ego or self-congratulation. It's about reinforcement learning. Your brain updates its behavior based on the consequences of your actions. If good work leads to good feelings, your brain will prioritize good work. If good work leads to nothing, your brain will deprioritize it in favor of activities that do trigger reward responses. The resistance to celebration often comes from a misunderstanding of what celebration means. It's not throwing a party every time you finish a paragraph. It's a brief, authentic acknowledgement of progress, a moment of satisfaction, a conscious recognition that you've moved forward. This recognition doesn't need to be elaborate or time-consuming. It just needs to be immediate and genuine. Your brain is constantly learning from the gap between expectation and reality. When you finish something and feel good about it, you're teaching your brain that finishing feels good. When you finish something and immediately move to the next task, you're teaching it that finishing is just another form of work. The architecture of micro-wins. The most effective reward structure divides your power window into 3 distinct phases, each with its own completion point. This creates multiple opportunities for satisfaction within a single work session. The first phase is planning and setup. You outline your approach, identify key milestones, and choose your first micro-finish. This might seem like preparation rather than real work, but it's actually crucial for creating momentum. When you have a clear plan, the work feels more manageable and the first finish line feels achievable. The second phase is creation. You produce the ugly first version, the rough draft, the initial analysis, the basic framework. This is often the hardest part because you're creating something from nothing, but it's also where the biggest psychological shift happens. You go from having nothing to having something, even if that something needs improvement. The third phase is refinement. You take one piece of your rough work and polish it to a shippable standard. Not perfect, but good enough to show someone else or use as a foundation for the next step. This creates a sense of genuine completion. You've not just worked on something, you've finished something. Each phase ends with a micro-reward. Not a long break or an elaborate celebration, but a brief moment of acknowledgement. Stand up, take a breath, check off a visible box, maybe take a short walk. The key is timing. The reward must immediately follow the completion. Your brain needs to connect the effort with the good feeling in real time. The 60-second rule. The most common mistake people make with micro-rewards is delaying them. They finish a section, tell themselves they'll celebrate later, then get caught up in the next task and forget entirely. This breaks the effort-reward connection and wastes the learning opportunity. The 60-second rule prevents this. When you complete a micro-finish, you have exactly 60 seconds to acknowledge it before moving on. This forces you to pause, recognize what you've accomplished, and let the satisfaction register. It's long enough to feel meaningful, but short enough to maintain momentum. During these 60 seconds, do something physical. Stand up, stretch, take a few deep breaths. Say "done" out loud to anchor the completion in your memory. Check off a box on a visible progress tracker. The physical action makes the psychological reward more concrete and memorable. Log the completion on a simple scoreboard near your workspace. This could be hash marks on a sticky note, checkboxes on a printed sheet, or marks on a whiteboard. The visual record serves multiple purposes. It provides immediate satisfaction, creates a sense of accumulating progress, and reminds you of your consistency when motivation dips. The weekly wildcard. Here's where the system gets sophisticated. Once per week, after completing your Friday power window, add a small, unexpected reward. This could be anything pleasant that you wouldn't normally do: a favorite coffee, a call to an old friend, a short walk in a new neighborhood. The key word is unexpected. Your brain pays special attention when reality exceeds expectations. This creates what neuroscientists call positive prediction error, the gap between what you expected and what actually happened. When this gap is positive, it strengthens the neural pathways associated with the behavior that preceded the surprise. The weekly surprise doesn't need to be expensive or elaborate. It just needs to be genuinely unexpected and genuinely pleasant. Your brain will start to associate deep work with the possibility of pleasant surprises, making the work itself more appealing over time. Vary the surprise so your brain doesn't adapt to it. If you always get the same coffee, it stops being surprising. If you always call the same friend, it becomes routine. The unpredictability is what makes it powerful. Your brain never knows exactly what's coming, so it stays attentive to the reward possibilities. The progress bar psychology. Visual progress indicators are dopamine delivery systems disguised as productivity tools. When you see a bar filling up, a number increasing, or boxes getting checked, your brain releases a small hit of satisfaction. This is why video games are so engaging. They provide constant visual feedback about advancement. You can hack this system for productive purposes by creating visible progress indicators for your work. The simplest version is a checklist with boxes to fill. More sophisticated versions might include percentage completion bars, point systems, or visual charts that show accumulating progress over time. Update your progress indicator only at genuine micro-finishes. Don't cheat by marking things complete before they're actually done. Your brain is sophisticated enough to distinguish between real progress and fake progress. Authentic accomplishment triggers authentic reward responses. Fake accomplishment triggers nothing and can actually undermine motivation. Keep your progress indicators simple and immediate. Complex tracking systems become work themselves, stealing time and attention from the actual tasks. The goal is to make progress visible, not to create elaborate measurement systems that require maintenance. The stall prevention protocol. Sometimes you'll hit a wall during your power window. The work feels harder than expected, the solution isn't obvious, or you simply run out of steam. This is when most people abandon the session or switch to easier tasks. Instead, use the stall prevention protocol. When you feel stuck, shrink your next microfinish to something achievable in 5 minutes or less. Write one paragraph instead of a full section. Create one slide instead of a complete presentation. Solve one small piece instead of the entire problem. The goal is forward motion, not perfect solutions. This serves two purposes. First, it maintains momentum when you might otherwise stop. Small progress is still progress, and it often leads to bigger breakthroughs. Second, it preserves the reward structure. You still get a completion and a micro-reward, keeping the positive feedback loop intact. If you're genuinely stuck on the main task, switch to a related but easier subtask that still moves the project forward. Organize your research, format your document, or review what you've already completed. These activities aren't procrastination if they're genuinely useful and lead to concrete micro-finishes. The compound effect. When you consistently link effort to immediate reward, something remarkable happens. Your brain starts to anticipate the good feeling that follows completion. The work itself becomes associated with satisfaction. Starting feels easier because your brain remembers the payoff. This creates what psychologists call intrinsic motivation, the desire to do something because it's inherently satisfying, not because of external pressures or rewards. You stop needing willpower to begin because your brain wants to experience the completion cycle. The effect compounds over time. Each successful session strengthens the effort-reward connection. Each micro-finish makes the next one feel more achievable. Each weekly surprise keeps the system fresh and engaging. The work stops feeling like work and starts feeling like the most rewarding part of your day. People around you will notice the change. You'll seem more engaged with your projects, more consistent in your output, more satisfied with your work. They'll ask what you're doing differently. The answer is simple. You've learned to make finishing feel as good as it should. But creating the right rewards is only part of the equation. The other part is ensuring that the right cues trigger the right behaviors automatically, without conscious effort or decision-making. That's where the next piece of the system becomes crucial, and it's more powerful than most people realize. Chapter 6, Habit Rebind. Your phone buzzes. Without thinking, you reach for it. Your hand moves before your brain even registers the sound. You unlock the screen, check the notification, and somehow end up scrolling through social media for 20 minutes. When you finally look up, you can't remember what the original notification was about. This is your brain on autopilot, and it's more powerful than you think. That unconscious reach for your phone wasn't a choice. It was a habit loop firing automatically. Cue, routine, check phone, reward, dopamine hit. Your striatum, the brain's habit center, executed this sequence faster than your prefrontal cortex could intervene. No willpower required, no conscious decision made. Here's the thing. That same automatic system that pulls you toward distraction can be rewired to pull you toward deep work. You don't need to fight your habits, you need to rebind them. The invisible puppeteer. Most people think they're making conscious choices throughout their day. They're not. Research suggests that up to 45% of daily behaviors are habits, automatic responses to environmental cues that run without conscious thought. You're not deciding to check your phone. You're responding to a trigger that's been reinforced thousands of times. This is why willpower-based productivity systems fail. You're trying to use conscious effort to override unconscious programming. It's like trying to steer a car by grabbing the wheel while someone else controls the pedals. You might influence the direction temporarily, but the automatic system will win in the long run. The solution isn't to eliminate habits, it's to reprogram them. Your brain is already running automatic sequences all day long. The question is whether those sequences serve your goals or sabotage them. Habit rebinding works by keeping the cue and the reward, but changing the routine in the middle. Instead of cue, scroll, spike, you create cue, work, spike. Same trigger, same neurochemical payoff, but the behavior that connects them serves your priorities instead of undermining them. The striatal hijack. Your striatum doesn't care about your goals. It's a pattern-matching machine that automates frequently repeated sequences. When it detects a familiar cue, it fires the associated routine before your conscious mind can evaluate whether that routine is helpful or harmful. This is why you can find yourself checking email when you sat down to write, or browsing news when you meant to analyze data. The cue, sitting at your desk, triggered the routine, open browser, because that's the pattern your striatum has learned to expect in that context. The good news is that the striatum is remarkably adaptable. It doesn't distinguish between productive and unproductive patterns. It just automates whatever gets repeated most often. Change the repetition, and you change the automation. The key is understanding that habits aren't just behaviors. They're neurological loops that can be reverse engineered and rebuilt. You don't need to create entirely new patterns from scratch. You can hijack existing loops and redirect them toward better outcomes. The rolling method. J.K. Rowling wrote the Harry Potter series using one of the most powerful habit rebinding techniques ever documented. She didn't rely on inspiration or motivation. She relied on environmental cues that automatically triggered writing behavior. During the early years, Rowling wrote in the same cafe, at the same table, with the same order. Later, she moved to hotel rooms but maintained the same ritual elements, specific music, particular pens, identical setup procedures. The location changed, but the cues remained consistent. This wasn't superstition, it was neuroscience. Rowling was training her brain to associate specific environmental triggers with writing behavior. When she sat down in the designated space with the familiar cues, her brain automatically shifted into writing mode. The habit loop ran itself. The result? 7 books that changed publishing history, written while raising a child as a single mother and dealing with financial stress. The work got done not because Rowling had superhuman discipline, but because she had superior environmental design. Notice what Rowling didn't do. She didn't wait for the perfect mood. She didn't rely on bursts of inspiration. She didn't try to force herself to write through willpower alone. She created conditions where writing became the automatic response to environmental cues. The willpower delusion. Tomorrow, I'll just be stronger. This is the battle cry of the perpetually stuck. They think the solution to distraction is more self-control, better intentions, or stronger resolve. They're fighting the wrong battle. Willpower is a finite resource that depletes throughout the day. By 3 p.m., you're running on fumes. By evening, you're making decisions with the same part of your brain that's been making decisions all day. It's tired, depleted, and looking for the path of least resistance. Habits, on the other hand, don't require willpower. They run automatically in the background, conserving mental energy for more important decisions. When you rebind your habits correctly, starting deep work becomes as automatic as checking your phone used to be. The most successful people aren't more disciplined. They're better at designing environments where good choices happen automatically. They don't rely on motivation. They rely on systems that make the right behavior the easiest behavior. The keystone trigger. The foundation of habit rebinding is the keystone cue, one specific trigger that initiates your entire deep work sequence. This isn't just any cue. It's a carefully chosen signal that you'll reserve exclusively for focused work. The cue could be auditory, a specific piece of instrumental music, white noise, or even a simple timer tone. It could be olfactory, a particular scent from a candle, essential oil, or incense. It could be visual, a specific lighting setup, or the act of putting on particular headphones. The key is exclusivity. This cue should never be associated with anything other than deep work. If you use the same music for relaxation, exercise, or background ambiance, it loses its power to trigger focus. Your brain needs a clear, unambiguous signal that means work time starts now. Start the cue at the exact same time each day. Your circadian rhythms are incredibly precise, and your brain will begin to anticipate the work session before the cue even fires. This creates a neurochemical head start. Your attention systems begin preparing for focus before you consciously decide to begin. The cue should be pleasant, but not exciting. You want calm alertness, not arousal. Exciting cues create the wrong neurochemical state for sustained attention. Calming cues create the right conditions for deep work to feel natural and sustainable. The frictionless first move. The moment between cue and action is where most habit loops break down. You hear your focus music, but then you have to decide what to work on. Find the right file, set up your workspace, and choose your approach. By the time you're ready to start, your brain has found 17 other things that seem more immediately appealing. The solution is to automate the first move. When your cue fires, your work environment should configure itself automatically. The right file opens to the exact paragraph where you left off. Your timer starts counting down from 50 minutes. Your cursor is positioned exactly where you need to begin typing. This requires some upfront setup, but the payoff is enormous. You eliminate the gap between intention and action. Your brain doesn't have time to second-guess the decision or find alternative activities. The cue triggers the behavior before resistance can build. Configure your system the night before. Close your laptop with tomorrow's work file, open to the right location. Set up your timer app to auto-start when you open it. Disable notifications and close unnecessary applications. When you sit down to work, everything should be ready for immediate action. The goal is to make starting easier than not starting. When the friction to begin is lower than the friction to avoid beginning, your brain will choose the path of least resistance, which happens to be the path you want it to take. The anti-scroll fortress. While you're making good behaviors frictionless, you need to make bad behaviors high friction. This is where the anti-scroll firewall comes in. a series of barriers that make distraction difficult and annoying. Start with app and website blocks. Use software that prevents access to distracting sites and applications for the duration of your power window, plus a buffer. Make the blocks difficult to override. Use a complex password, give the password to a trusted partner, or use software that can't be easily disabled. Physical distance is your friend. Move your phone to another room, or at least out of arm's reach. The few seconds required to get up and retrieve it create enough friction to break the automatic reach response. Your brain will often abandon the impulse rather than invest the effort. Grayscale your remaining screens. Color is designed to grab attention and trigger dopamine responses. When you remove color from your work environment, you eliminate hundreds of micro-distractions that compete for your attention throughout the day. Remove visual triggers completely. Notification badges, dock icons, and browser bookmarks are all cues that can trigger distraction loops. Hide them, disable them, or delete them entirely during your work sessions. The recovery protocol. Sometimes you'll get derailed despite your best efforts. An urgent call will interrupt your session, a system crash will destroy your setup, or you'll simply have a moment of weakness and click on something distracting. When this happens, don't abandon the entire session. Use the recovery protocol. Immediately refire your keystone cue and restart with a 20-minute make-good session. This serves two purposes. First, it salvages something productive from a disrupted day. Second, it reinforces the habit loop by ensuring that the cue routine reward sequence still completes, even if it's abbreviated. The make-good session should focus on the easiest possible version of your planned work. If you were writing, write one paragraph. If you were analyzing data, complete one small calculation. The goal isn't to accomplish everything you originally planned, it's to maintain the neurological pattern that makes tomorrow's session more likely to succeed. Don't punish yourself for getting derailed. Punishment creates negative associations with your work environment and can actually weaken the habit loop you're trying to build. Instead, treat interruptions as data about which parts of your system need strengthening. The automation cascade. When habit rebinding works correctly, it creates a cascade of automatic behaviors. The keystone cue triggers not just the first action, but an entire sequence of productive behaviors that unfold without conscious effort. You hear your focus music, and your hands automatically move to close distracting browser tabs. You see your timer start, and your posture automatically adjusts to your optimal working position. You open your work file, and your brain automatically shifts into the mental state associated with deep thinking. This cascade effect is why the initial setup is so important. You're not just creating one habit, you're creating a chain of habits that reinforce each other. Each automatic behavior makes the next one more likely to occur. The cascade also explains why consistency is crucial in the early stages. Every time you follow the complete sequence, you strengthen all the links in the chain. Every time you skip a step or modify the routine, you weaken the automatic response. The compound effect. After 2 weeks of consistent habit rebinding, you'll notice that starting feels easier. After a month, the cue will begin to trigger anticipation rather than resistance. After 2 months, interrupting your work session will feel more disruptive than beginning it. This is your striatum learning new patterns. The old cue scroll spike loop is weakening from disuse, while the new cue work spike loop is strengthening from repetition. Your brain is literally rewiring itself to prefer productive behaviors over distracting ones. The most remarkable change happens around the 6-week mark. The urge to check distracting apps during your work session doesn't just weaken, it often disappears entirely. Your brain stops generating the impulse because the environmental cues no longer trigger the old routine. People around you will notice the change. You'll seem more focused, more consistent, more reliable. They'll ask what you're doing differently. The answer is simple. You've stopped fighting your habits and started designing them. But even the most perfectly designed habits can crumble if they're not anchored to something deeper than behavior change. That's where the next piece of the system becomes crucial, and it's the difference between temporary improvement and permanent transformation. Chapter 7, Identity Lock. You've built the perfect system. Your baseline resets like clockwork. Your power window is defended. Your rewards are linked to effort. Your habits run automatically. For 3 weeks, everything works beautifully. Then life hits. A deadline crisis, a family emergency, a week of travel, and the whole thing crumbles. Sound familiar? You're not the first person to build a productivity system that works until it doesn't. The missing piece isn't better tactics or stronger willpower. It's something deeper, more fundamental, and more powerful than any technique. It's identity. Most behavior change fails because it's built on shifting sand, temporary motivation, external pressure, or short-term goals. But identity is bedrock. When you see yourself as a certain type of person, you act like that person automatically, even when systems fail and motivation disappears. The question isn't whether you can follow a productivity system for a few weeks. The question is, who do you become when you follow it consistently? And more importantly, how do you lock that identity in place so it survives the inevitable storms? The deeper game. Skills fade, habits break, systems get disrupted, but identity persists. It's the story you tell yourself about who you are, and that story drives behavior more powerfully than any external system ever could. Think about someone you know who's naturally organized. They don't struggle to keep their workspace clean. It would feel wrong to leave it messy. They don't force themselves to plan ahead. Planning is just what organized people do. Their identity makes certain behaviors feel automatic and others feel foreign. Now think about someone who identifies as creative but disorganized. They might try productivity systems, but they'll unconsciously sabotage them because being too structured conflicts with their self-image. Their identity creates resistance to the very behaviors that would help them most. This is why most productivity advice fails. It tries to change behavior without changing identity. It's like trying to renovate a house while the foundation is cracking. The improvements look good temporarily, but they won't survive the first real stress test. Identity level change is different. When you genuinely see yourself as someone who finishes important work daily, skipping your power window feels like betraying yourself. When you identify as a person who ships consistently, abandoning projects feels off-brand. The behavior becomes self-reinforcing because it aligns with who you believe you are. The Goggins transformation. David Goggins was 300 pounds, depressed, and working as an exterminator when he decided to become a Navy SEAL. The physical transformation was remarkable, but the identity transformation was even more profound. Goggins didn't just lose weight and get fit, he became someone who does impossible things. This identity shift didn't happen through affirmations or visualization. It happened through accumulated evidence. Every 4 a.m. run, every brutal workout, every time he chose the hard path over the easy one, Goggins was building proof that he was the type of person who doesn't quit. The identity became self-reinforcing. When faced with a challenge, Goggins didn't ask, "Can I do this?" He asked, "What would someone who does impossible things do?" The answer was always to lean into the difficulty, not away from it. Notice how this works. Goggins didn't wait until he felt like a different person to start acting differently. He started acting differently and let the identity follow. Each action that aligned with his desired identity strengthened that identity. Each strengthened identity made the next aligned action more likely. The key insight is that identity and behavior exist in a feedback loop. Your actions shape your identity, and your identity shapes your actions. Most people try to change behavior while keeping the same identity. Goggins changed both simultaneously, using each to reinforce the other. The affirmation trap. I am a productive person. I am disciplined and focused. I finish what I start. Sound familiar? These are the mantras of the perpetually stuck, people who think identity change happens through repetition of positive statements. Affirmations without evidence are just wishful thinking. Your brain is too smart to believe statements that contradict your lived experience. If you tell yourself you're disciplined while your desk is covered in half-finished projects, your subconscious will reject the message. The gap between words and reality creates cognitive dissonance, not identity change. Real identity change requires receipts. You need evidence that supports the story you're telling yourself. This evidence comes from behavior, not from words. Every time you act in alignment with your desired identity, you're making a small deposit in your identity bank account. Every time you act against it, you're making a withdrawal. The most powerful identity statements are behavioral, not aspirational. Instead of "I am disciplined," try "I am someone who protects their power window." Instead of "I am productive," try "I am someone who ships something meaningful every week." The specificity makes the identity concrete and measurable. The private tracking illusion. Many people prefer to track their progress privately. It feels safer, less vulnerable, less likely to result in embarrassment if they fail. This is exactly why private tracking is less effective than public accountability. When your progress is private, the only person you're accountable to is yourself. And yourself is remarkably good at making excuses, rationalizing failures, and lowering standards when things get difficult. You can always restart tomorrow, adjust the system, or convince yourself that this week doesn't really count. Public accountability changes the equation. When other people know about your commitments, breaking them carries social cost. Not huge cost, you're not announcing your goals to the world, but enough cost to make consistency feel more important than convenience. The key is finding the right level of public exposure. Too little, and there's no accountability. Too much, and you're performing for an audience instead of building genuine habits. The sweet spot is usually 1 to 3 people who care about your success and will notice if you disappear. The 3-part lock. Identity lock operates through 3 interconnected mechanisms that reinforce each other. First, you craft a simple identity statement that connects who you are to what you do. This isn't a vague aspiration. It's a specific behavioral description that you can prove or disprove through your actions. The statement should be concrete and tied to your power window. "I am the builder who finishes daily" is better than "I am productive." "I am someone who ships something meaningful every week" is better than "I am creative." The specificity makes the identity measurable and actionable. Post this statement where you'll see it before every work session. Read it as part of your baseline reset ritual. The repetition isn't about convincing yourself it's true. It's about reminding yourself what you're building evidence for. Each power window becomes an opportunity to strengthen this identity through action. Second, you create a visible streak tracker that leverages loss aversion. Humans hate losing things they already have more than they like gaining equivalent things they don't have. A visible streak creates something to lose, making consistency feel more important than it would otherwise. Use physical tracking, paper chains, wall tallies, or a simple calendar with X marks. Digital tracking is convenient, but physical tracking is visceral. You can see your progress accumulating. You can feel the weight of potential loss when you consider skipping a day. Mark your streak only after completing your power window, not before. The mark represents evidence of identity-aligned behavior, not intention. If you miss a day, don't break the streak. Run a 20-minute make-good session and mark it differently. The goal is consistency, not perfection. Third, you add micro-public proof through small, regular shares with a tiny audience. This could be a weekly post to social media, an email to a few friends, or a message to an accountability partner. The content is simple: what you completed this week and how many consecutive power windows you've maintained. Keep the proof factual, not promotional. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're creating accountability. Week 7, completed 5/5 power windows, shipped client proposal draft, is perfect. Another amazing week of crushing my goals is not. The streak psychology. Streaks are powerful because they transform individual actions into part of a larger narrative. Instead of, "I worked for 2 hours today," the story becomes, "I've worked for 2 hours every day for 3 weeks." The streak creates momentum that makes each individual session feel more significant. The longer your streak, the more valuable it becomes. Missing day 1 costs you 1 day. Missing day 21 costs you 21 days. This asymmetric loss creates powerful motivation to maintain consistency, especially during the inevitable moments when you don't feel like showing up. Use visual differentiation to make your progress more compelling. Different colored markers for each week, or different symbols for different types of accomplishments. The visual variety makes the streak feel more substantial and the progress more real. Track not just completion, but also what you shipped. A streak of showing up is good. A streak of showing up and shipping is better. This dual tracking reinforces both the process, consistent work, and the outcome, meaningful progress. The social proof amplifier. When you share your progress publicly, even with a small audience, you're not just creating accountability, you're building social proof for your new identity. Other people start to see you as someone who finishes things consistently. This external recognition reinforces your internal identity. The audience doesn't need to be large. One trusted friend who checks in weekly is often more effective than 100 social media followers who might not notice if you disappear. Choose people who will actually pay attention and who care about your success. Ask one person to actively hold you accountable. Give them permission to ask uncomfortable questions if you go quiet. I haven't seen an update from you this week. Everything okay? This gentle pressure is often enough to prevent temporary lapses from becoming permanent abandonment. Keep the sharing simple and sustainable. If creating the update becomes work itself, you'll eventually skip it. One sentence plus one concrete example of what you shipped is sufficient. The goal is accountability, not content creation. The compound identity effect. After 7 days of consistent power windows and streak tracking, you'll notice a subtle shift. The work starts to feel less like something you have to do and more like something you do. The identity is beginning to take root. After 21 days, other people will start to notice your consistency. They'll begin to see you as someone who gets things done reliably. This external recognition reinforces your internal identity and makes backsliding feel more costly. After 60 days, something remarkable happens. Protecting your power window becomes instinctive. Skipping feels wrong, not just inconvenient. You've successfully locked in an identity that makes discipline feel natural instead of forced. The most powerful moment comes when you realize you're no longer trying to become someone who finishes things consistently. You are someone who finishes things consistently. The identity has shifted from aspiration to reality, and the behavior flows naturally from that reality. When the lock breaks, sometimes you'll miss a day despite your best efforts. A genuine emergency will disrupt your schedule, or you'll simply have a moment of weakness. When this happens, don't abandon the entire system. Use the recovery protocol. Run a 20-minute make-good session the same day you miss your full power window. This preserves the streak with a different marking and maintains the identity narrative. You're still someone who shows up, even if the showing up looks different than planned. Don't let perfectionism destroy progress. A streak with occasional make-good sessions is infinitely better than no streak at all. The goal is building an identity around consistency, not perfection. If you miss multiple days, restart immediately rather than waiting for Monday or the first of the month. Every day you delay restarting is another day of evidence against your desired identity. The comeback starts now, not later. The ultimate test. The true test of identity lock isn't how you perform when everything is going well, it's how you perform when everything is going wrong. When you're stressed, tired, overwhelmed, or dealing with crisis, do you still protect your power window? Do you still show up for the work that matters? This is when identity becomes your anchor. When systems fail and motivation disappears, identity keeps you tethered to the behaviors that serve your long-term interests. You show up not because you feel like it, but because that's who you are. The lock is complete when skipping feels harder than showing up. when consistency becomes your default mode and inconsistency feels foreign, when other people expect you to deliver because you've built a reputation for reliability. But even the strongest identity can weaken over time if it's not properly maintained. That's where the final piece of the system becomes crucial, and it's the one most people overlook until it's too late. Chapter 8, Recovery Days. You've been crushing it for 6 weeks straight. Every power window completed, every micro reward earned, every streak mark proudly displayed on your wall. You're finally addicted to discipline, just like the system promised. Then something strange happens. Monday morning arrives, and the work that used to feel magnetic now feels flat. The rewards that used to spark joy barely register. Your brain, which had been craving deep work, suddenly seems indifferent to it. You push through anyway, but the sessions feel mechanical, joyless, like you're going through the motions of productivity without the substance. What's happening? You've discovered the dark side of dopamine optimization. Your receptors are fried. This is the moment most people panic and abandon their systems entirely. They think the magic is gone, that they've somehow broken their brain's ability to find work rewarding. They're wrong. They've just learned why elite performers in every field, from athletes to musicians to entrepreneurs, treat recovery not as weakness, but as strategy. The tolerance trap. Your dopamine system is remarkably adaptive. It's designed to maintain homeostasis, which means it automatically adjusts to whatever level of stimulation becomes normal. When you consistently provide high levels of reward, even earned meaningful rewards, your receptors gradually become less sensitive to those same rewards. This is neurochemical tolerance, and it's exactly what happens with any repeated stimulus. The first time you complete a power window, it feels amazing. The 10th time, it feels good. The 50th time, it feels normal. Your brain has adapted to the new baseline, and what once felt rewarding now feels routine. Most productivity systems ignore this biological reality. They assume that if something works today, doing more of it will work better tomorrow. They push for daily optimization, constant improvement, relentless forward progress. This approach works brilliantly for a few weeks, then crashes spectacularly when tolerance kicks in. The solution isn't to quit or to find bigger rewards. It's to understand that your motivational system, like any high-performance machine, requires regular maintenance. You need planned recovery periods that allow your receptors to reset and your sensitivity to return. The athletic parallel. LeBron James doesn't play basketball at maximum intensity 365 days a year. Despite being one of the most driven athletes in history, he follows carefully planned recovery cycles that include rest days, light training sessions, and complete off-seasons. This isn't laziness, it's longevity strategy. James understands that peak performance requires oscillation between stress and recovery. The stress creates adaptation. The recovery allows that adaptation to consolidate. Without recovery, stress becomes distress, adaptation becomes breakdown, and peak performance becomes impossible. The same principle applies to cognitive work. Your brain needs periods of reduced stimulation to maintain its sensitivity to meaningful rewards. Elite knowledge workers intuitively understand this. They take sabbaticals, schedule thinking retreats, and protect time for reflection. They know that constant productivity leads to diminishing returns. James has played at an elite level for over 2 decades, partly because he treats recovery as seriously as he treats training. His off-season isn't random downtime. It's structured recovery designed to prepare him for the next season's demands. His rest days aren't lazy days. They're strategic investments in future performance. The key insight is that recovery isn't the absence of training. It's a different type of training. It's training your system to be ready for the next cycle of high performance. The grind culture lie. Grind daily or lose momentum. This is the mantra of the perpetually burned out. They confuse activity with progress, stimulation with satisfaction, and busyness with effectiveness. They think that taking a day off will somehow erase weeks of progress. This mindset is neurochemically naive. Constant stimulation doesn't create momentum. It creates tolerance. When your dopamine receptors are constantly activated, they become less responsive to activation. The very system you're trying to optimize becomes less optimized with overuse. The grind culture mistake is thinking that more is always better. More work, more rewards, more stimulation, more intensity. But biological systems don't work that way. They work through cycles of stress and recovery, activation and rest, stimulus and adaptation. Elite performers understand this intuitively. They know that the day off makes the work day more effective. The quiet day makes the productive day more satisfying. The low stimulation period makes the high performance period more sustainable. Recovery isn't the enemy of momentum, it's the foundation of sustainable momentum. Without it, you're not building a high-performance system. You're building a high-performance system that's guaranteed to break down. The sensitivity reset. Recovery days work by temporarily lowering your stimulation baseline, which increases your sensitivity to the rewards that matter. It's like adjusting your eyes to darkness so you can see stars that were invisible in bright light. The stars were always there. You just needed the right conditions to perceive them. When you take a planned low-stimulation day, you're not being lazy. You're recalibrating your reward system. You're ensuring that next week's power windows feel as rewarding as this week's felt when you started. You're maintaining the neurochemical conditions that make discipline feel addictive instead of arduous. The recovery day should be scheduled, not random. Put it on your calendar like any other important appointment. Inform your collaborators that you're unavailable for deep work. Treat it as seriously as you treat your power windows, because it serves the same ultimate purpose, optimizing your ability to do meaningful work. Keep the same day each week when possible. Your brain thrives on predictable rhythms. When recovery becomes part of your weekly pattern, your system begins to anticipate and prepare for it. The recovery becomes more effective because your brain knows it's coming. The low stimulation protocol. A recovery day isn't a free-for-all. It's not permission to binge on social media, news, or entertainment. That would flood your system with exactly the kind of stimulation you're trying to reduce. Instead, it's a carefully designed low-stimulation environment that allows your receptors to reset. Keep your devices in lock mode for extended periods. Check them only during 2 brief, scheduled windows, perhaps once in the morning and once in the afternoon. The goal is to break the pattern of constant microstimulation that keeps your baseline elevated. Choose gentle inputs over intense ones. Read a physical book instead of scrolling articles. Take a walk without podcasts instead of consuming educational content. Have an unhurried conversation instead of rapid-fire text exchanges. The slower pace allows your attention system to downshift and recover. Avoid high-novelty activities. Don't use recovery day to try new restaurants, explore new places, or start new projects. Novelty is stimulating, and stimulation is what you're trying to reduce. Stick to familiar, calming activities that don't demand much cognitive processing. Replace heavy planning with gentle reflection. Instead of mapping out next week's projects in detail, simply identify one small first move for Monday's power window. The goal is to maintain forward momentum without creating the cognitive load that comes with intensive planning. The maintenance block. Even on recovery day, you'll run one brief work session, but it's different from your regular power windows. This 20-minute maintenance block serves 3 purposes. It keeps your streak alive, it maintains the habit loop, and it prevents the anxiety that can come from complete disconnection from work. The maintenance block should be the easiest possible version of your regular work. If you normally write for 2 hours, spend 20 minutes outlining 1 paragraph. If you normally analyze complex data, spend 20 minutes organizing your files. The goal is gentle forward motion, not significant progress. Start by opening next week's task menu and identifying a single first move for Monday. This could be as simple as open the client file and read the first page, or review yesterday's notes and write 1 sentence. The specificity eliminates decision fatigue when Monday arrives. End the maintenance block with 1 tiny win. Complete something small but concrete. Outline 1 section, draft one email, organize one folder. This provides a micro reward that maintains the positive association with work while respecting the low stimulation nature of the day. The maintenance block should feel easy, almost effortless. If it feels like work, you're doing too much. The goal is to maintain connection without creating stress. The preparation ritual. Recovery days work best when they're planned, not improvised. Create a simple checklist of low-stimulation activities so you don't have to decide what to do in the moment. Decision-making is stimulating, and stimulation is what you're trying to avoid. Tidy your workspace before the recovery day begins. Visual clutter creates cognitive load, even when you're not actively working. A clean, organized environment supports the calm mental state you're trying to cultivate. Prepare your environment for minimal stimulation. Charge your devices so you're not thinking about battery levels. Set up your space for reading or other calm activities. Have everything ready so the day can unfold smoothly without requiring decisions or problem solving. Keep social interactions light and unrushed. This isn't the day for intense conversations, difficult decisions, or complex social dynamics. Protect the quiet mental space you're creating. Let people know you're having a low-key day and prefer to keep things simple. The Monday test. The true measure of a successful recovery day is how Monday feels. If you've done it right, you'll wake up mentally hungry for work. The power window that might have felt routine on Friday will feel appealing again. The tasks that seemed dull will seem interesting. This isn't placebo effect. It's receptor sensitivity returning to optimal levels. Your brain has had time to reset its baseline, making the same rewards feel more rewarding. The work hasn't changed, but your capacity to find it satisfying has been restored. Monday's first sprint should feel smooth and natural. The urges to check distracting apps should be noticeably lower. The focus should come more easily. If these things don't happen, you probably didn't achieve sufficient stimulation reduction on your recovery day. Over time, you should notice that your week-over-week enjoyment of challenging tasks increases rather than decreases. This is the compound effect of proper recovery. Each cycle leaves you more capable of sustained high performance, not less. The guilt override. Many high achievers struggle with recovery day guilt. They feel like they're being lazy, wasting time, or falling behind. This guilt is counterproductive and neurochemically naive. Recovery isn't time off from progress, it's investment in future progress. Reframe recovery as fuel, not rest. You're not taking a break from your goals, you're ensuring you can pursue them sustainably. You're not being lazy, you're being strategic. You're not falling behind, you're setting up conditions to leap ahead. Review your streak and shipped items when guilt arises. Look at the concrete evidence of what you've accomplished through consistent power windows. The recovery day isn't erasing that progress, it's ensuring you can continue building on it. Remember that elite performers in every field use recovery strategically. Athletes deload, musicians take breaks between intensive practice periods, entrepreneurs step back to gain perspective. You're not being weak, you're being professional. The compound recovery effect. After several weeks of consistent recovery days, you'll notice something remarkable. Your overall capacity for sustained effort increases. The work that used to drain you starts to energize you. The system that once required willpower starts to run on genuine desire. This is the compound effect of proper recovery. Each cycle of stress and recovery makes you more resilient, not less. Each planned low-stimulation day makes the high-performance days more sustainable. Each strategic rest makes the strategic work more effective. Your relationship with work itself begins to change. Instead of seeing it as something you have to push through, you start seeing it as something you get to engage with. The recovery days make the work days feel like opportunities rather than obligations. The people around you will notice this shift. You'll seem more energetic, more engaged, more sustainable in your efforts. They'll ask how you maintain such consistent high performance without burning out. The answer is simple. You've learned that recovery isn't the opposite of performance. It's the foundation of performance. But even with perfect recovery protocols, the entire system can still collapse if you don't know how to integrate all the pieces into a sustainable whole. That's where the final chapter becomes crucial, and it's where most people either achieve lasting transformation or return to their old patterns forever. Chapter 9, Forever Forward. 6 months from now, you'll sit in a meeting where someone asks, "Who can take point on this complex project?" Without hesitation, every head in the room will turn toward you. Not because you're the smartest person there, or the most experienced, or the most charismatic, because you're the one who finishes things. This isn't fantasy. It's the inevitable result of what you've built over the past 8 chapters. You now possess something rarer than talent, more valuable than credentials, and more powerful than connections, a system that makes discipline feel addictive. But systems are only as strong as their daily execution. The difference between temporary improvement and permanent transformation lies in what happens next, how you integrate these pieces into a sustainable rhythm that compounds over time instead of fading with the initial enthusiasm. The 7-part engine. You've built a sophisticated machine for converting time into meaningful output. Let's see how all the pieces work together in a typical week. Monday begins with your baseline reset, 15 minutes of deliberate noise reduction that creates the neurochemical conditions for focus. You dump mental residue, lock distracting apps, and trigger your keystone cue. Your brain downshifts from scattered to centered. Your power window opens like clockwork. Same time, same place, same ritual. The work that used to require willpower now feels magnetic because your brain anticipates the satisfaction that follows. You're not forcing focus, you're surfing it. Phasic Control keeps your dopamine budget tight. No random checks, no scattered rewards. Your best neurochemical hits go to your best work. Each micro-finish triggers a brief celebration that strengthens the effort-reward connection. Reward Link makes completion addictive. Every small finish earns immediate acknowledgement. Your weekly surprise keeps the system fresh and your brain attentive to new possibilities. Progress becomes its own reward. Habit Rebind runs the sequence automatically. Your cues trigger productive routines before your conscious mind can negotiate. The environment does the heavy lifting while you focus on the work itself. Identity Lock makes consistency feel inevitable. You're not someone trying to be disciplined. You're someone who finishes important work daily. The visible streak and weekly proof create accountability that makes skipping feel off-brand. Recovery days preserve the sensitivity that makes everything else work. One planned low-stimulation day per week prevents tolerance and keeps motivation fresh. Rest becomes strategy, not weakness. Each component reinforces the others. The better your baseline reset, the more effective your power window. The more consistent your power window, the stronger your identity. The stronger your identity, the more natural the habits become. It's a virtuous cycle that gets easier with repetition, not harder. The control revolution. The most profound shift isn't in what you accomplish. It's in how you relate to desire itself. For most of your life, you've been at the mercy of whatever your brain happened to crave in any given moment. Motivation was something that visited you occasionally, like good weather, and you had to make the most of it while it lasted. Now you control the weather. You don't wait for motivation. You manufacture it through environmental design. You don't hope for focus. You create it through systematic noise reduction. You don't chase inspiration. You engineer it through reward optimization. This isn't about becoming a productivity robot. It's about becoming the author of your own attention. You decide what deserves your best mental energy. You choose which activities get reinforced with neurochemical rewards. You design the conditions that make important work feel irresistible. The ripple effects extend far beyond your work output. When you control your attention, you control your experience. When you control your rewards, you control your desires. When you control your habits, you control your identity. The system doesn't just make you more productive, it makes you more intentional about everything. The relationship dividend. Protecting your power window doesn't just improve your work, It improves your presence everywhere else. When you know your most important work is handled, you can be fully present for the people who matter most. The anxious checking stops. You're not mentally somewhere else during conversations because you've already been somewhere else, in your power window, making real progress on real priorities. The guilt that used to follow you home disappears because you've earned your evening through focused effort. Your reliability becomes legendary. When you say you'll deliver something, people believe you because you've built a track record of finishing what you start. This reliability creates trust, and trust creates opportunities that wouldn't exist otherwise. The stress that used to spill over into your relationships evaporates. You're not constantly worried about falling behind because you're consistently moving forward. Your mood stabilizes because your progress is predictable. The people around you notice the difference and respond accordingly. The compound advantage. 6 months of consistent power windows creates roughly 500 hours of focused work on your most important projects. That's equivalent to 3 months of full-time effort compressed into daily 2-hour blocks. The compound effect is staggering. Projects that used to take months get finished in weeks. Ideas that used to remain ideas become shipped products. Skills that used to develop slowly accelerate through deliberate practice. Your output doesn't just increase, it multiplies. But the real advantage isn't the quantity of work, it's the quality of thinking. 2 hours of uninterrupted focus produces insights that 20 hours of scattered attention never could. Deep work doesn't just get more done, it gets better things done. Your reputation shifts from promising to proven. People stop seeing you as someone with potential and start seeing you as someone who delivers. This shift opens doors that talent alone never could. Consistency becomes your competitive advantage. The effortless transition. The most remarkable change happens around month 3. Starting your power window stops feeling like a decision and starts feeling like a reflex. Your brain begins to crave the work session before it arrives. The system runs itself while you focus on the substance. This isn't willpower, it's neuroplasticity. Your brain has literally rewired itself to prefer focused effort over scattered distraction. The same neural pathways that used to pull you toward your phone now pull you toward your most important work. The effort required to maintain the system approaches zero. You're not fighting yourself anymore. You're flowing with yourself. The habits have become so automatic that breaking them would require more energy than maintaining them. This is when the real magic happens. When discipline becomes effortless, you can focus all your mental energy on the quality of your work instead of the quantity of your effort. Excellence becomes possible because consistency is no longer in question. The Bryant Blueprint. Kobe Bryant's career perfectly illustrates what happens when someone masters this entire system over decades. Bryant didn't just work hard, he worked systematically, with the same obsessive attention to process that you've learned to apply to knowledge work. Bryant's training sessions were power windows, protected blocks of time where nothing else existed except the specific skill he was developing. No distractions, no shortcuts, no negotiations with himself about whether he felt like showing up. His baseline control was legendary. During practice, there was no novelty, no entertainment, no stimulation except the work itself. He understood intuitively that scattered attention produces scattered results, while focused attention produces focused results. His identity was completely fused with effort. He wasn't someone who played basketball, he was someone who outworked everyone else who played basketball. This identity made consistency feel inevitable rather than optional. The reward system was built into the work itself. Bryant found genuine satisfaction in the process of improvement, not just the outcomes. Each perfect shot, each defensive stop, each moment of flow became its own reward. Recovery was strategic, not random. Bryant's rest days were planned and purposeful, designed to maintain peak performance over decades rather than maximize performance over weeks. The result was 20 years of sustained excellence that outlasted more naturally gifted competitors. Bryant's system was more durable than his talent, and his system is what made him legendary. The starting line. You have everything you need: the knowledge, the framework, the step-by-step process. The only question is whether you'll use it. And that question gets answered not with words, but with actions. Not with intentions, but with implementations. Tonight, before you sleep, block tomorrow's power window on your calendar. Choose the exact 2-hour slot when your energy peaks. Make it non-negotiable. Treat it like a meeting with the person you're becoming. Write your 3-item task menu. What must happen tomorrow? What should happen if time allows? What could happen if you finish early? Remove every decision point between waking up and starting work. Set up your environment for automatic execution. Enable your app blocks. Charge your devices. Open tomorrow's work file to the exact spot where you'll begin. Lay out your keystone cue. Make starting easier than not starting. This isn't preparation, it's transformation. Each small action tonight makes tomorrow's breakthrough more likely. Each system you implement makes the next system easier to maintain. Each choice you make in favor of your future self strengthens the identity that makes all other choices easier. The moment of truth. 2 hours. That's all that stands between the person you are and the person you're becoming. Not 2 hours of perfect work. 2 hours of protected work. Not 2 hours of inspiration. 2 hours of implementation. Not 2 hours of motivation. 2 hours of systematic progress, regardless of how you feel. The timer starts when you decide it starts. The transformation begins when you begin. The system works when you work the system. You've spent years wondering what you could accomplish if you could just focus consistently. You've imagined the projects you'd complete, the skills you'd develop, the reputation you'd build. You've dreamed about becoming someone who finishes what they start. Stop wondering, stop imagining, stop dreaming. Design your dopamine. Don't chase it. Become the person who finishes today, tomorrow, and quietly forever. The clock is waiting. Your future self is waiting. Your most important work is waiting. Start the timer. Begin the block. Become addicted. 2 hours. One decision. Everything changes now.